One, two, three. Metal Mike coming at you. Well, it's September 28th, 2016. And this video is specifically going out for Cliff Burton. This is a Metallica video. A celebration of his life, his music, the legacy of Metallica, and my small story as a fan of Metallica since 1985. And I wanted to tell my small story, being yesterday was September 27th, the 30th anniversary of Cliff's passing, and miss dearly. Don't know Cliff, never knew Cliff, loved his music since 1985. So I'm going to tell you my story. Metallica. Where to start with Metallica? How did it start for me? At the time, I was a huge Venom fan. We're talking 1985. We're going way back to the beginning. I had never heard anything as heavy as Venom before, and along with Merciful Fate, they really shaped the beginning of my metal lifestyle. Prior to that, it was Van Halen, Motley Crue, the basics in the metal scene. So I remember that everywhere I went, it was Venom. I loved Venom. I considered them the heaviest band in the world. No one could ever top Venom. Venom were the shit. I even had a homemade Venom shirt that said, Born of Evil, Thus Defiled on the back. I had drawn the picture off the At War with Satan. And before you say, well, isn't this about Metallica? Why are you rambling about Venom? Because I'm just trying to build the pyramid for you at the very base. And so I was out late night with a bunch of my buddies, and we ended up at a Taco John's of all places, and there was a girl behind the counter, and she pointed, she goes, Venom! I love Venom! So she was a huge metal fan. So I was like, Venom, yes! The heaviest band in the world. No one's heavier, because that's what everywhere I would spew it on anyone, because Venom were the heaviest band in my mind. And I'll just never forget this. There wasn't that much of an exchange between us other than her acknowledging my Venom shirt and then just looking at me and saying, have you heard Metallica? I was like, nothing touches Venom. She's like, Metallica is really good. So I ended up getting Kill 'Em All on cassette. And on my Walkman, I listened to that over and over and over again. I had never heard such crunch. It was unbelievable. So I began to fall in love with Metallica. And then Ride the Lightning came out. And wow, I'll never forget it. I was in my basement playing Ride the Lightning, and I think we were listening to Escape or something, Trapped Under Ice, whatever. I had my buddy at the time, Jerry Fleischacker, and we were down in the basement, and we were listening. And the crunch, we had never heard a crunch like that before. I think the closest I had come to hearing such a crunchy guitar was, this is absurd but true, was Motley Crue, Come On and Dance. The crunch at the beginning of that song was definitely throughout this record and even crunchier. So I remember listening to it, and we were headbanging, and who knows what we were doing, sniffing Rush or whatever the hell we would do. We would do anything in those days. Drinking schnapps. And I remember I had this beautiful spiked bracelet. It was like this big, and it was covered in spikes and studs, and it was so sharp. It was immaculate. It was heavy metal. And so I grabbed my Motley Crue Too Fast for Love, and I placed it on the ground. I was like, I smashed it to pieces. Pieces were flying everywhere because I had discovered truly what I had been looking for. This was it. So we sacrificed the Motley Crue album to Ride the Lightning, and then it just began. It was just an album I played every day before school. So, set that aside. Comes a time, Metallica's coming to town with Wasp and Armored Saint Metallica, and they're going to play First Avenue. So I'm just going to get it out of the way right now, the sadness that it is. I did not go to that show. It is something that I've always regretted, that, and missing the Born Again tour with Black Sabbath is my all-time mistakes of dropping the ball. So I didn't go to the show, but there was a record signing at Northern Lights Music on Whitebear Avenue in St. Paul. That I was going to go to because it was in my area, St. Paul. I took a city bus there. We went inside of this small little store that is no longer in existence. It's gone. And we waited around, and suddenly this old, large four-door car pulled up in front. I want to say a Caprice or something of that style. 1970s car for sure. And out pours Metallica. The first thing that struck me was, wow, Hetfield is tall and intimidating. He just had this aura about him that you didn't want to mess with him. He seemed right on the edge of teetering. So they came in, and remember at the point the room was really not much bigger than where we are here, maybe 3 of these rooms really, but not large at all. And so this is the era before autographs where you could sign, you could only have one thing signed and you had to wait in line. It was really just a hodgepodge. They went behind the counter and you could just go up, talk to them, get them autographed, and mingle. So they would come out from behind the counter. So basically at this point everyone has their autographs. I had brought in a piece of cardboard about the size of an album, and I used to get a zine. I would hunt down heavy metal zines, but I had one called Kick-Ass Monthly. I think Dio was on the cover for the issue. And there were some really early Metallica pictures at the time. You remember, this is Ride the Lightning era. So I'm getting maybe just a little bit before Kill 'Em All was released pictures. There was one even, I remember, a shot, and the banner behind Metallica was at an angle, so it was crooked. So anyway, I had cut these pictures out, pasted them on this thing, and I was going to have them autograph them. So I'm showing them the pictures, and right away the guys are like, wow, these are fucking old pictures. Matter of fact, Kirk had written that, fucking old pictures, rad, or something like that, really cool. They loved them, and they were giggling and pointing at the pictures, and even at this time, these were considered old. You know, this is only a year, 2 years had gone by, I guess, but they had been together since 81, 82, whatever. And so I get the autographs, and they write all these cool things on them, and then at this point, all the autographs are signed. Now we're just mingling about the store, looking at records, staring at Metallica. I met Cliff, I met Kirk, of course, Lars, and James, and had all their autographs done. So at this point, Lars is out walking around in the store. And I go up to Lars and I was like, will you sign this again? And he goes, what? I already signed this. Why would you want to get it signed twice? Literally furrowing his brow at me, just confused. It's already signed. And I said, man, this is once in a lifetime. One of you guys might die or something. This is crazy. Please. So they all went and signed it a second time, but what was so unique is Lars wrote on there, once in a lifetime, except he spelled once with a W. So it really was once in a lifetime, and so there I got to meet the band. I got to meet them really before it had really kicked off. Of course, the excitement for Metallica was brewing. Everyone could feel this was going to be the huge band, but this is prior to Master of Puppets, so I'm pretty sure it was anyway. I want to say it's 85 at this point when I'm meeting them, when they're on tour with Wasp and Armored Saint. But whatever the case, I really don't have a story about Cliff other than I met him and he was kind, and they were all kind. They were all friendly. James was intimidating, of course, very tall and intimidating. Remember, I'm a 16, 17-year-old kid. And that was it, you know. I met Metallica, and the significance of that day was lost for many years. I ended up moving on what I thought to heavier stuff, and a lot of heavier stuff. And Metallica kind of got left in the dust after Master of the Puppets. But then as I grew older, I went back to these albums, and at this point in my life, I love the early Metallica. I even love their last album, Death Magnetic, and I can't wait for their new one to come out. I don't believe in this bullshit that people are, you know, like Metallica sucked and have sucked forever and this and that. They've never sucked. Maybe they released some albums that people didn't get into, but this is a band that literally built metal for what we know today, and without them, well, the significance of Metallica and Dave Mustaine and Megadeth and all that are just beyond words, and at this point they're a legend. And it feels so amazing 30 years later to have been right about something. You know, to have grown up in an era and to like a band and then to see them, I guess a lot of people that probably were Beatles fans could compare to that feeling of discovering something new and then following it, and then suddenly, you were right, this is an amazing band. You were there for the ride. I lived it. What a beautiful era to have lived, the 1980s. Nothing will ever touch it. I don't think you'll ever see a volcano of music again that will touch that era between 1980 and, geez, you could tail it off, 1990, maybe 1987 is when it had kind of peaked and was beginning to decline. But holy shit, what a beautiful time to have lived. And Metallica, I love them so much. Playing Master of Puppets over and over again in my very first car, the one that actually I could drive. It was a Plymouth Duster, and the front end was broke. I can't remember what that was called. I remember at the time, but it's been too many years. So the front end sat like this, and I would just play that on cassette through my pitiful sounding stereo over and over again. So when I hear that music today, it takes me back to driving in that car. And they were on Howard Stern this week on the 26th, the day before the anniversary for Cliff, and they played live, and they played Master of Puppets. And I literally broke down in tears, because that's what's so beautiful about music, is it can take you back to a moment in time like nothing else can. It's the true time machine of life. You can feel those feelings that you felt at 17, 16 years old, and how special that is. And to see them, the mega behemoth of a band that they are today, and then remembering back to that simple time, and then remembering, hey, I met Cliff. I was so blessed to have met him. And I remember when he passed, reading it in the newspaper. In those days, there was no internet. You read things by the newspaper. And, you know, at the time, we were able to, it was devastating, but you were able to kind of, you're so young, you don't even understand these things, life, death. You're just feeling yourself out, you're learning. But now, you know, I'm 49 years old, and it's been 30 years since he passed. And so the significance and the impact, you can actually still feel it inside, more so now than ever. Now I understand the loss of life and what that meant to Metallica, and how they were able to persevere and continue on after that. That would wipe out almost anyone, if you can imagine. That's a close buddy being tragically dying like that right in front of you. And they are still standing. And boy, is that a testament to the human willpower to go on. And just, I want to just say that Cliff, you know, his father, Ray Burton, posted some videos yesterday, and you can feel, I can't imagine as a father to lose your son like that. But yet the overwhelming warmth from the metal community that has wrapped around the Burton family and Metallica and Cliff's legacy, because it really is a legacy. This is not something that's been built up from nothing. If you go back and listen to Metallica's early work with Cliff, it's untouchable. It will live forever. Now, I know that he liked Bach, Cliff did, and he loved Bach. He loved classical music. And the fact that classical music has such an impact, the stuff that Bach wrote all those hundreds of years ago, that's how Cliff is going to continue to be alive on this earth, is through his music, will live forever. And so I just wanted to tell that story. Is it unique? I guess I always kind of clung to the story just because it was like, why would you want to have us sign this? And I just looked at it and I was like, it's once in a lifetime. One of you might die or something. And then it wasn't much longer. One of them did die. And then to see that in writing, once in a lifetime, really connected the meaning to that. And so it's always been, for me, a story that meant something, just because I experienced it, of course. But I do want to share it with the world because it was unique in its own way, and it's just one of millions of stories of people meeting Cliff. There's so many of what a great person he was, and this really wasn't that. It was just a chance meeting, but the impact it has had on me is incredible. To still love a band as much as you did at 17 years old and at 49 years old is an amazing feeling. I can put on Master of Puppets, and though I've heard it a zillion times, it's so fresh to me because it's that important of a piece of work. All three of the first albums are really, and the EPs too. So that's what I wanted to say, and I just wanted to say rest in peace to Cliff Burton, officially for the world to see, from a metal fan that grew up listening to you, was blessed enough to meet you. all my love to the band Metallica. Your music means so much to me. Your new music means so much to me. Death Magnetic was incredible. But let's just end it with this. Cliff Burton, your music will live forever. I'm repeating myself. What 1,000 millions of people have said. But just getting these words out for eternity, for people to be able to hear of having lived in that era. Wow. You know, I'm filibustering, I'm repeating myself, but that's what goes on in my mind. These are the thoughts that just go over and over again. The love, the respect, the sadness of the loss. If he would still be here, what would Metallica, my gosh, can you imagine? Wow. Cliff Burton, rest in peace. You are never, ever forgotten. And your music will live forever. And all my love to Metallica for creating the music that lives forever. My love to Dave Mustaine and Megadeth, because that's all family. It all joins together. And we all feel as one. I think everyone who grew up in that era has a piece of their heart with Cliff. And for the new kids out there that, you know, have the passion and love for Cliff, thank you. Thank you for keeping the legacy going. It makes us all feel so proud to see the youth of today loving the music that we grew up on. It gives it such power that we knew what was right. We knew what was great. This was not popular music at the time. It wasn't like today. You know, you were insulted, put down, mocked, teased, tormented if you were a heavy metal fan. Not at all like today. It was so much different. It was so unique. Such a special time. No internet. You had to go to the record store and find it. You had to scour magazine shops and find magazines and dig for bands. And wow, it was just a beautiful time. And Cliff, thank you, man, for your music. When I'm done with this, I'm going to put on Master of Puppets, and I'm going to listen to your work for the millionth time. And I'll play it a million more as long as I'm on this earth. Knock on wood. I got to live another 36, 40 years easily to take care of my kids. I'm always going to tell this story and tell how much I love the music and keep playing it loud, forever, loud, old school on a turntable. Metal Mike, rest in peace, Cliff Burton, 30th anniversary of his passing, September 28th. 27th he passed, I'm sorry. Today is the 28th. But, yeah, somber moment. It's really, it hits it home. When you hear that big number, 30, wow, how the hell did that happen? It seems like yesterday. Everyone, play Metallica loud. Cliff, I love you, brother.